Maya Manseau, entrepreneur, mentor, intuitive, and amazing author too. You've got so many quills in your so many bows in your quill, sorry, Maya, that it would take a very long time to introduce you thoroughly, but I would like to thank you very, very much for your work with me. Maya has been working with me for a couple of months now, and her mentorship is absolutely invaluable. Not only does Maya have a small business path, but she creates peace, which is an amazing space for people who are living through grief and loss. And I cannot say enough good things about Maya. So with no further ado, let's welcome you very much for coming on here, Maya, and doing this with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I have a book coming out next week called Navigating the Small Business Path, Do What You Love, doing what you love and earning your dream life. And I have a course that I put together. And this is one of the lessons out of my course. It's kind of out of the middle of the course. But basically, what I want to talk about today is being of service. And those of you that are here, like, you want to teach what you love and you want to be able to earn your dream life. So you already understand the value of service. But this is something that I talk to everyone about. And I love this quote: every type of service necessary to the public good becomes honorable because it's necessary. And I think education is one of the key fundamental rights that everyone should be able to learn about the things that they're passionate about. And I think that if you know what you're passionate about enough and want to teach it, I think that's even better. When I help people with their small business, whether they're about to form it or if they already have an existing small business, I always talk to them about how they can create a business for long-term success. And to me, there's three key ingredients. The first one is the problem that you solve for other people. Now, the problem that the people you're going to try and help is they want to learn something, and they want to be able to learn it from people who are passionate about teaching it. But when it comes to you creating your own business around it, the question becomes, who do you want to help? And what is that problem that you know how to solve that you can teach them, specifically in this example? Now, one of the keys to long-term success in doing this is to find out what they want to learn that they're willing to pay you to teach them. A lot of people who start small businesses, they come at it from what they're passionate about, which is wonderful. But there's often times where in order to make a living off doing it, you need to find out specifically what are they willing to pay you to learn. And I think that in the teaching realm, I mean, certainly there's a lot of tutoring and those kinds of things. But as you're looking at this, making sure that who you want to help and what they're willing to pay you for, that's a key component of making it a business. The second part of it is your passion, which is really the why of your business. And a lot of people will say, I'm really passionate about teaching them. I'm just going to say, teaching them how to play violin. Maybe I'm really passionate about teaching them to play violin. But you need to make sure that your passion is aligned with the people that you want to help and the problem that you're solving. Because if you're not passionate about that, long term, it's not really going to work for you. Then the plan of action is the when, the where, and the how of the business. When are you solving this problem for them? Where are you solving it? But most importantly, how do you solve this? When you can get all of these things in alignment, then you have really a fantastic opportunity at long-term success. So we're going to go over the problem, the passion, and the plan of action in more detail. I do want to make this interactive, so if you have questions at any point, just raise your hand or wave at me, and I try and make sure that I'm paying attention. Okay, so starting off with the problem, the what of the problem is what are you helping them? And in this case, what are you helping them learn? And the who you help is really important. A lot of times, a lot of people will say, "What's your client avatar? What's that ideal client?" And a lot of times we think about like it being a specific kind of stereotype of a person, a woman in their, middle, 40 to 60 or whatever that is. People think of that a lot. But I'm going to ask you to think about it from a slightly different perspective, right? How would you describe the person? What are their priorities? I also want you to think about who do you help directly and who do you help indirectly? Now, a great example of this is, let's take the scenario of, let's say that you want to tutor students in English, just as an example, right? If it's a student who's a child, the parents are the ones that are going to be reaching out to you, and they're hiring you to a degree. But you're really helping the student directly to improve their knowledge. You're helping the parents indirectly because their wish is that their student is more successful, right? And the reason why you might want to think about directly versus indirectly is that when you look at your business as a whole, again, taking the example of a parent who has a student, if you want to tutor the student in English, that's helping the student directly. But are there things that you could also teach the parents about how they could help their student or about things that they can do to make their students more successful? When you look at the whole problem and not just a part of the problem, then you have a chance to expand your offerings. You have a chance to expand what you're charging. And, like what kind of support do they need emotionally, physically, spiritually? That student who's struggling in English, is that the only thing they're struggling in? Or are there learning skills that you could be teaching them that kind of cross subjects? What kind of emotional support do they need? If you have a child that's struggling, or even an adult learner who's struggling, what other things can you add into your whole concept of how you help them that could benefit everybody? And then the last thing on here is, what words do they use to describe your problem, their problem? And the reason why this is really, really important is very often I'll talk to someone who's like, I want to offer this, and I have training in this alphabet soup of acronyms, and I have these teaching techniques, and I can help your kid. If the parent doesn't know the acronyms, doesn't know the teaching styles, they're not going to immediately recognize that you can help them, even though you can. Whereas if you listen to the words they use to describe their problem, and you use those words in your marketing materials or your course curriculums or things like that, then when the parent and or the student can recognize themselves in the words that you're using, then they will be like, you understand me, you probably can help me, let me talk to you at a deeper level. Questions so far on that? All right.
Not a question, Maya, but I totally agree. I come from a background that's full of acronyms and specific language. And my biggest challenge is trying to convert that into everyday speak. In when I converse with people, but also when I'm sharing about what I do, either on social media or in advertising, whatever, it's taking what is technical and specific language and connecting it to my clients' needs, which are usually around frustration and those kind of things. So it's good to be reminded of always what is the language that my clients speak in or think in.
You know, a great exercise for you to do might be to take those acronyms and describe the human problem that it solves. You know, for example, my younger daughter is high functioning autistic, and I didn't know that when she was in school. But she has a very distinct learning style. She has ADHD. She doesn't sit for long. But you put something fascinating, mechanical in front of her, and she's got to figure it out as a problem, that kid can focus, right? So we reached out for help because, you know, she wasn't doing well in like 5th grade math. So we took her to an education center who could explain how they could help us. And they did some testing on her, and they came back and said, she's bored. She's testing at like senior and high school level math, but she's just really bored in her math class. So, but they taught us, they not only helped her with that problem, but they taught us like she's a visual learner and using like educational coloring books and things in different colors. So we were fascinated by how they took the problem that we were talking about, taught, you know, they had extensive learning, and I'm sure there were acronyms behind all of that, which I wouldn't even have remembered, but they could say, this technique will help her do that. And I'm going to say they dumbed it down for us. And it's not that we're dumb and couldn't understand it, but we weren't enmeshed in it in the way that they were. And so, and because our frustration was up and we were worried about our daughter, and like there's a whole emotional component, a whole social component, it was really great that they could do that for us. All right. All right. So this is regarding the problem that you're solving. And these are, again, great ways to learn to communicate about how you solve things, right? What do they struggle with? Right? And this, it's important to remember that this is before they figured out how to solve the problem, right? They're coming to you to help solve the problem, to teach them what they need to learn. So what are they struggling with? Are they struggling with the subject matter? Are they struggling with learning techniques? Are they struggling with, I had somebody else who was trying to teach me this, and now I feel even stupider because I couldn't understand them, right? So there's just, when you can speak to their struggle, you really begin to speak their language and connect them. The next question is really, really important. Is there a way that you can help build them a solid foundation? Right? You know, I learned how to play violin as a kid. And there's so many foundational pieces. I needed to learn to read music. I needed to learn how to hold my instrument properly and make my hands do two different things while I'm thinking. But if you can be like, all right, so here's a kid who's struggling, and now I can help them with this particular subject, but I can also teach them learning techniques that they can use for other pieces. You know, that can expand them. That can expand your time with them. That can expand how you help them. The next one is, what is unique about your approach to solving this problem? Now, I think it's really, really important to honor that even if you were to take a clone of your body and clone yourself, that person would never be you, because that person would never have had your unique set of experiences, your unique set of wisdom that you've learned, your unique gifts, talents, and abilities. And so many people that I talk to are like, well, you know, they'll say like, this is what I'm doing. And I'll be like, well, what about this? And what do you do about that? And they're like, well, everybody knows that. And I'm like, no, that's not true. You can't assume that anybody knows anything. You can say, here's all of the things that I can help you with. Here's all of the ways I can help you learn. Which of these do you struggle with? And so by having almost a foundation checklist that they can do before you work with them, you can start to see all of the ways that you can help them. The next question on this slide, what value can you add to their life? Now, I encourage anyone and everyone who owns a business to not start with, what do I want to charge? I want you to say, what value can you add to someone's life? So, you know, again, helping the child go from a failing grade to a passing grade in English. Awesome. But if you can also add more value by teaching them 3 specific learning techniques that will aid them, that would benefit them across more subjects, that's adding more value to their life. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that you charge them more or spend more time with them, but it's, at the end of the day, every time I'm looking at what I'm doing, it's how can I add more value? What can I do for these people kind of over and above what their expectations are? Because the more value you add to someone's life, the more you can charge an appropriate amount, meaning you are being fairly compensated. You don't have to worry about, am I charging them too much money? Because if I very much believe in the value that I'm adding, then I don't feel bad about charging enough to add that value for them. But the other thing about this is that when you add so much value to their life, kind of even above and beyond what their expectation is, right? If, let me put it this way, if someone signs up with me and pays me $500, if I give them $250 worth of value, they're not going to be my customer again. If I give them $500 worth of customer, or value for $500, they'll be like, that was fair. I would do that again. But if I give them $1,000 worth of value and charge them $500, I now have a client that not only will come back to me anytime I can help them, but anytime they encounter anybody else that has the problem that they think I can solve, they're going to send them my way. And the more value you're adding, as opposed to the price you're charging, the more word of mouth will build your business. And once people know that you add so much value, you have a business that is set up for long-term success. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, especially with teaching, are there other products that they could use that you could sell them that either you develop or um, or that you're aware of that you could do affiliate marketing with? So, for example, if if you can come up with some sort of a workbook that will help this child or this adult learn, you could sell the workbook, you could upgrade your packages and sell the workbook, and or you could potentially sell the workbook to other people who would then come and get additional services as well, right? But it's thinking about what products are they going to use? Has anybody here heard of affiliate marketing? Okay, yeah. You know, I had a photography business, right? My job was to take photos, give them photos. But I went out and found wedding albums and canvas prints and all kinds of other complementary products that I could offer, make money on those, and also it was a more complete package for the people that I was helping. The last question on this slide is, what is their dream come true? And I think this is like the ultimate question, right? So if somebody's struggling with something and or wants to learn something, what is their dream come true? You know, for example, as an adult learner, many years ago, I started to try and learn how to play the piano. At some point, I may actually try and find a teacher to help me learn how to play piano. My dream come true as an adult learner and with everything else in my life, I'd just be happy if I could sit down and play a few songs and, you know, sound half decent. Whereas if I had a young child that was extremely talented, their dream come true might be a concert pianist, right? So when you're thinking about what their dream come true is, what are all of the parts of that dream that you can help them to get them there? Because if they can get to their dream come true after working with you, again, you have added so much value in their life because you helped them do something they couldn't do on their own. Okay? All right. Let's talk about your passion. You know, all of us have things we're passionate about. Some of those things are going to be hobbies. You know, no one is ever going to pay me to come play violin at their wedding. Like, that's just not ever going to happen. I love it. I'm passionate about it, but it's not going to be a thing, right? I look at the passion as what is the impact I want to have on my own life, on those in my community, and I think of my clients as my community, and in my world, right? You know, I have two passions that sort of align into a business. The first one that I am passionate about is helping people create peace in their life, especially after they've lost someone, either to death or a relationship or a job or whatever. I'm passionate about helping people with their grief because I lost my older daughter to leukemia and I had to kind of claw my way back to life after that happened. And so if I can take what I've learned and help people with that, I am passionate about that. But I also sort of consider that more like my gift to the world because if I have someone who's very deep in depression after loss and very deep in grief, I'm not, and I'm going to say this the way I would have felt about it. I don't want to prey on them. I would help them if they want help. I will let them have my books for free and all of that. Because that is what I want. I want people to be able to find peace again. Now, with a small business path, to me, this is a very specific example of helping people find peace. Because in my mind, if I can help somebody do what they love and live the life that they dream of, they are creating peace for themselves in a profound and sustainable way. But it's also very actionable. So when you're thinking about your passion for this, what do you want for yourself, for your community, and the world? Now, it's really important to think about how this aligns with that problem and the people you want to help, right? And the best example of misalignment that I've come up with so far is if you don't like kids, don't open a daycare, right? Like, it is not sustainable, right? Nobody's going to be happy. The kids are not going to be happy. The parents are not going to be happy, and you're not going to be happy, right? But if you adore children, especially very young children, then a daycare is a great thing, right? My point in this is if you're not in alignment between these two things, it's not sustainable. All right. Questions to ask yourself specifically about what you want to do. Why does solving this problem bring you joy? So for the people that you want to teach and the subject you want to teach them about, how does that bring you joy? Are you passionate about helping the people that have that problem? This I think is such an interesting set of questions. What are you here to learn, and what are you here to teach? Now, obviously, I'm talking to people who want to teach other people, right? But we never stop learning. There will never be a day where I'm not always trying to learn. I often learn by helping others, right? Because when you help others, you can't help but learn new things, because if they're having a problem with how they are learning, you may need to come at things from a different angle. There's always more to learn. And for me, if you are so passionate about what you want to teach that you could spend the rest of your life learning other ways to teach it, then that's the sweet spot. That's when everything's in alignment. Is this how you want to earn your living? So, and I'm going to be kind of really direct on this one, right? I have a lot of things. Like, I love baking. I love baking. My best way to get me out of a bad mood is to go in the kitchen, get elbow deep in flour, and be like, I am baking joy and love and beautiful things into this world, right? Now, and I could teach people. I totally, and I will at some point offer a class on what I call cooking with intention, right? I believe that if you put love into it, you get love out of it. And if you've got a chef that's having a crappy day, I don't want to eat their food. I don't want to eat what they're putting into that food, right? I would love to teach a course on that. I think it would be a blast. I actually would love to incorporate that into like a week-long retreat where we all sit down and we make a meal with intention, right? Is that how I want to earn my living? No. You know, I probably could build a business around it. I probably could open a bakery and build a business around it and incorporate that into the business. But that's my passion, but it's not what I want. That's my hobby, right? And one of the mistakes that I think people make are when they're really passionate about something, they're like, I want to go earn my living doing that. And 2 points. One is kind of really think through, is that sustainable as a long-term success foundation? Are there enough people who want to learn how to cook with intention? You know, maybe, maybe not. But the biggest thing I will say about earning your living versus having a business as a hobby is if you are not making money at it, you have a very expensive hobby, even if you think it's your business. So it's not to say you're not on the right track, but if you're not making the money that you want, then we need to come kind of back into alignment and say, what is that problem that people will pay me to solve for them? And who are those people? And why am I passionate about it? So it doesn't mean you're totally on the wrong tracks, but I think you really have to think about, is this a hobby? Is this a business? Is it going in the right direction for me? All right. The last of the three major pieces, we've talked about the problem, which is the who and the what. We've talked about the passion, which is the why. Your plan of action is the when, the where, and the how. And even at a higher level than that, this is the meaningful connection that you create with your clients, right? What is the schedule in terms of the when? What is the schedule that works for you, right? When I started my photography business, I did wedding photography. Weddings are on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays where I live. The clients, they want to meet you in the evening because they don't want to get out of work to come meet with a photographer because they've got 10 million other appointments that they're already taking time off for, right? If I wasn't willing to work evenings and weekends, that job would never have worked for me, right? If I am a mom who has kids in school and I need to be there for, get them off to school and pick them up from school, those are realistic time constraints. And if it's really important that again, to have long-term success, sustainability, you need to work with a schedule that's going to work for you. Otherwise, it's going to create chaos and conflict. You also have to look at what schedule works for your clients. And, obviously, some things will be more important than others, and some things they will rearrange their schedule for you. But you're going to have the most success if when you are willing to work also works for your client base. And the last question is, do you want to work to live or do you want to live to work? And I think that none of us want to live to work. We want our work to benefit our life. And so it's really important when you're making this plan of action to be really, really honest with yourself about what's good for you time-wise and what's good for your clients. The next part of your plan of action is, where do you work? Right? And I think there's three specific places I want you to think about. One is working with a client. Like, I work on Zoom a lot with my clients, but I also want to have a place where if I have local clients who want to meet, that I can meet with them. I think that's also really important. Where you work with your clients may be different than where you do your paperwork, right? Every business comes with paperwork. You've got to do your taxes. You've got your just all the paperworky stuff, right? Just there's business paperwork, there's client paperwork. Do you need, a desk and I can work here? Do I need filing cabinets? Do I, what's in my Zoom background? All of those things are really important, right? But I also want you to think about, where do you create? So what I mean by that is, if you are doing videos for social media, if you are like, I don't necessarily sell painting, but energetically, part of the work that I do is all about creating, right? So I want a place to paint. I want a place to hang stuff up on the wall if I want to get it like a big visual going, right? So what do you need to create, and what space do you need to do it in? Now, your plan of action. Excuse me. Looks like we have someone in the waiting room. Okay. If you are taking stock of your plan of action, right? How do you build a plan of action? And I'm not talking a business plan with numbers and all of that. I'm talking about logistically, how do you put your business together and decide what you're selling and how much and all of that, right? The first two things on this how are, it's basically an inventory that you need to take, right? What is your natural gifts? What do you just know how to do? Right? I sat down once with a young woman who had been a stay-at-home mom and done homeschooling and all of that. And she was getting a divorce, and she needed to go get a job outside of the house. And she's like, I'm in my mid-30s and I've never had a job as an adult, and I'm not qualified. I don't think I could get a job. And I said, well, let's sit down and talk. And I said, let's talk about your natural gifts, talents, and abilities. What are you just naturally good at? What have you had to learn how to do? Well, she'd been a teacher. She'd homeschooled her kids. So she had to know all about the curriculums and how to homeschool and how to connect with the local schools and make sure all that was covered. She was the one who was responsible for paying all the bills and budgeting on a single family income. She had gardening skills. And I mean, this woman was very naturally gifted, wasn't in the working world. But when we sat down and we listed that all out, she was able to go get a job with nothing flat. Your wisdom. Now, we all have wisdom, and quite often I find people underestimate the wisdom that they have gained. And when I talk to them about what is their purpose, what is their thing that they want to be in this world and have that impact they're here to have, they sort of underestimate their wisdom. And so when we kind of get to the point of saying, all right, what do you think of this as your purpose? All of a sudden they're like, oh, I did that then. And then, and then there was this other time where it was sort of similar and I did this. And you start talking to them, and all of a sudden they can't stop thinking of examples where they have done something and helped someone and gained wisdom from it. And I want you to never underestimate how unique your wisdom is. So And I've got a great example. So after years and years in the corporate world, I started a wedding photography business, and I had no formal training as a photographer. I had never had my own small business, but I did my research. I figured out what people wanted and all of that. And about 3 years in, I had made a name for myself, and I was at a bridal show setting up my booth, and other photographers were coming over to kind of introduce themselves and look at my stuff because they're like, you came out of nowhere. I mean, they didn't say this, but they were kind of like, you came out of nowhere. What do you know that where did you come from? How do you do this? And I had this one photographer who walks up and he's flipping through my albums, and he's at the section where it's the wedding reception. Now, my approach to a wedding reception is I walk around, I mingle, I smile at people. I'll catch their eye when they're sitting at a table and I'll smile. And I'm like, hold the camera up, like off to the side, non-threatening. And they're like, yes, okay, go ahead. We know you're going to do it. But it's such a playful banter that they're always smiling, right? So this photographer's looking at this album and he's looking at like all of these people that are just like beaming at me. And he goes, how do you get him to smile? I thought he was not serious. I thought he was being a little flip. So I answered him a little flip. I'm like, smile at him first. It was such a no-brainer for me. And he goes, wow, really? And I thought, oh, good Lord, this man should not be in public with people. Like, how could he not know that? Right? But that's where we underestimate our wisdom, right? The humanity that you bring into your business and the little wisdoms, the little kindnesses, right? The little helpful things make such a difference. The next part of your plan of action is your products and services. Now, I'm going to tie that directly to the next step, which is that framework of steps to solve the problem, right? If you develop a framework of how you do something, and you say, here are all the individual steps of how I could help them, then when you go to make a product offering, you can be like, some people only need this much. So that's a product offering. That's like the minimal product offering that I want to get into people with. And then other people are going to need the whole product. So that's my biggest package. And then other people will be like, I need, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the 10 steps, right? So, but by having that framework of steps, it allows you to do a couple of things, right? It allows you to mix and match to really customize to make sure you're adding exactly the right value to the clients. It helps you educate your clients on how you can help them. Because if you're like, let me take my wedding photography business again as an example, right? The first thing I did was I went out and researched, what do people want at their wedding, during their wedding day, for photography? And at a high level, it's like some people want like the bride and the bridesmaids getting ready, and then the groom and the groomsmen before, then the ceremony, then the formal pictures afterwards, and then the reception. And some people only want like 2 or 3 hours of the reception to cover the big, first events, and other people want it all the way through, right? What I also did, though, was I created a framework of steps so that when a prospective couple would come in and talk to me, I would be like, okay, so let's just talk through your day, and let's talk about some of the things because my packages were all day. That's how I wanted to do it. So I would be like, so, where are you getting ready? Are you getting your hair done? Do you want pictures while you're getting ready? Oftentimes, here are the things that I take, here are the pictures I take while you're getting ready, right? Because they don't even know. My clients didn't know what was possible. They may have seen other friends' weddings or looked in the magazines, but they didn't know what was possible for them. The other thing I would say is now, has nothing to do with photography, but because I was doing photography at every wedding, in my camera, I had this huge camera bag that I would take with me that had all my camera equipment, but I also carried bobby pins, safety pins, scissors, sewing kit, combs. Like I carried huge umbrellas in my car. And I will tell you, that stuff probably got me more weddings than anything else. Because I would get into a situation and they'd be like, oh, I need a comb. Oh, I need scissors, whatever. And I'd be like, I got it. Kind of like Mary Poppins, suitcase. I'm just like pulling this stuff out. And they were like, oh my God, you made my day so calm. You brought, they didn't necessarily say the word peace, but like you brought peace to my wedding because every time we had this, oh my God moment, you were like, I got it. You're covered. I would talk them through the ceremony and about, are you having a receiving line when you leave the church? And they're like, if they said no, I'm like, okay, so if you're not having a receiving line, you need a plan of where to go so that when the first guests come out, if you're standing there, you have a receiving line, right? So I would talk them through all of these parts of the day that I knew about because I was there all the time. I was doing it every weekend or most weekends out of a year. And so by knowing all of those pieces, I mean, I would teach them how to cut a cake and I would know how to bustle the dresses because the bride was usually the only one that had shown and it's on her butt and she can't see it when her dress is on. And she's like, oh my God, how do I do this? Those pieces had nothing to do with photography. They had everything to do with why I was successful because I added so much value. So knowing what all those pieces are, even if you don't do those pieces, if you can become a resource for the other pieces, you become valuable and it costs you nothing to do those pieces. Does that make sense? Okay. Now the next,
Sorry,
yeah.
Mayor, I just wanted to interject there. I've just put it in the chat. That's where having a foundation checklist could come in really handy. If you are setting up a business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a teaching business. I mean, we're all teaching. We've all got something to teach, and we've all got something to learn. But if you can give a client a checklist, like, where are you at? Where are you at? For me, it would be, where are you at in your business journey? How can have you considered this? Have you considered that? Your branding, your if you've got that checklist there, then you can bring in your services and customize them really, really well with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, like in this class that I put together, the first thing they do is a self-assessment. And it's not about being hard on yourself. It's not about blaming yourself or feeling like a failure. It's if you look at honestly where you are today, and you're like, if you're here and your dream come true is over here somewhere, right? Just knowing what the pieces are to get here from here to there. Like that's an education in and of itself. And they may go, oh, I didn't realize that was part of this.
Yeah.
So it is really important.
And in learning, even in the classroom at the basic level, having that foundation checklist, I guess, is checking in on where the student is at, and then being able to design a program that is going to meet their needs rather than bore the hell out of them, like your daughter.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
bothered to ask her you know, why are you bored? Why are you doing so badly? Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that's dropped for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. And then networking connections to share clients, right? So I have this bizarre story about networking. So when I started my photography business, I knew nothing about networking, knew nothing about small business. Went to drop my older daughter off at a friend's house and was talking to her mom, and she's like, "What's new?" And I'm like, "Oh, I started this business." And she's like, "You need to come to my business networking group." And I'm like, "Sure, okay, what?" Yeah. So I joined this group called BNI, Business Networking International. They got um, theoretically they're an international organization, and the premise is that you get one person from all different kinds of businesses, and you get together once a week and you learn about each other, and you're supposed to refer business to each other. So I, in my infinite wisdom, was like, I chose a group that had the premier wedding florist, a cake baker, an invitation person. It had a wedding band. It had a wedding planner, right? I'm like, this is the group. They will get to know me and trust me, and they will hire me, they will refer me. Turns out the way weddings work is one of the first things to get books is the photographer, because photographers only do one wedding in a day. So you get them early, like you pick your venue, the date. Photographer's usually about second. So I was referring to the other people in the group, but none of the wedding professionals, it wasn't that they didn't like me, but it was that I was further down the line. I was ahead of them in line. So they didn't really, like, by the time the clients got to them, they're like, "We already have a photographer, thanks." But I had one dude in that group who was phenomenal at recommending me. Any guesses as to what he did? You'll never guess. He was an exterminator. Now, you're like, how, right? How? He would go in and regularly exterminate at all the wedding venues. And he developed relationships with all the wedding venues so that he could get lots of business. And as he got to know me and see my pictures and trust me, he would go in, start up a casual conversation with the manager at the wedding venue. And what he would say is, "Hey, would you be willing to have a meeting with her so she can show you her stuff and just let you know who she is and what she does?" And inevitably they'd be like, "Sure, but I'll take a meeting." Didn't cost them anything, half an hour, 45 minutes of their time. And I would go in and I would be like, "And here are my beautiful," and by the way, if everywhere that I do a wedding, like, I will make a copy of the album and give you copies of the album so you have beautiful pictures to share of, weddings at your venue for your brides. And they'd be like, "Hey, would you like to be on our preferred vendor list?" And I'd be like, "Yes, I would. Thank you very much." So the exterminator, I I mean, it's amazing that the exterminator is the person I got the most referrals from. But what that goes to show you is, who do you know and why do you know them? And you cannot make assumptions. You can have conversations, right? You can educate the people that you're around. And you're looking for people that have the clients that you're looking for. And honestly, have that elevator pitch. Have that, "Hey, here's what I do and how I do it," and have a great story of someone that you've helped and how you helped them. And um you just never know. You never know. All right. So one of the questions I get all the time is, where do you start? Like, if I don't already have a business going, where do you start, right? The problem is probably the strongest place to start. If you can identify a problem that is a human need that other people are willing to pay you to solve, that is probably the strongest place that you can start. And how do you recognize that? People tell you their problems all the time. If you have leads and you get to talk to people, ask them what their struggles are. What are their problems? You know, if you are listening in conversations and somebody says, I'm really trying to find, and this is like not even potential clients, just in general. Hey, I'm having a conversation with a friend and they're telling me about this problem that they're having or that their friend is having. And that is a problem that they would be willing to pay somebody else to solve. So when you start, have you ever bought a new car and like you've never noticed that model before, but you buy that car and all of a sudden it's the only car you see on the road, right? Finding problems to solve is the same way. When you put that hat on to start looking for problems that people are willing to pay money for, then you're going to start recognizing those more quickly and thinking about how does that apply to what I can offer. Passion is often the most heartfelt place to start. But again, alignment between that passion and the problem is important. And then the plan of action is the most experienced place to start. So if I have a problem that I have solved repeatedly for myself and for others, and I know how to do it, and it comes easily, could that be something that you're passionate about doing? I've talked to a lot of different people that have gone through health issues and they've had to help someone go through a health issue, or they've had to figure out how to go through a health issue, or like me with grief. I can't say that before my daughter died, I would never have imagined being passionate about helping somebody with grief. And while I was going through it, especially the early years, I didn't think that was something that I would be passionate about helping. But as I started to heal myself, others started to be like, you solved that problem. How did you do that? Or you have developed ways to help yourself deal with the loss. You figured out how to go on despite your loss. Like, I would like to know that too. And as it says at the bottom, alignment between all of these is the key to success. And really that's what this slide is about. When you can make that who and what, when you can bring them contentment, right? Solving a problem creates contentment. Deep contentment for your clients. And I find that when I can help them solve the problem, it creates contentment for myself as well. Your passion, your why of your business is about joy. How can I bring joy to the people I'm helping, and does helping them bring me joy? Your plan of action is your meaningful connection, right? I think if you are doing what you love, I think you automatically create a meaningful connection to those that you're helping. If you are not creating a meaningful connection, let me state it this way. Of the people that I've talked to about their businesses, if they are not looking for meaningful connection in the relationship with their client, they are looking for fast money. And that fast money will never create long-term success because people will feel undervalued and used, right? So when you can align your problem, your passion, and your plan of action, to me, that means you've found your sacred purpose, that reason why you're here, to have that impact you were meant to have. And that is what creates long-term success. Does that make sense? Oprah Winfrey said, follow your passions and it will lead to your purpose. And, you know, no matter how you come at it, when you find your purpose, you know, your passion is on display for everyone. So any questions about any of this? Oh,
Again, not questions, but just reflection.
Yeah.
You know, I'm clear. I've found the work after many decades of doing different things that is my passion. I love what I do. I work with people with neurodiversities, particularly dyslexia and dyspraxia and ADHD, and contemplating training to work with clients with autism as well. And I love my work. It's when I'm at my, I think at my best as a human being is when I'm working with clients. But I think what you've created today is sometimes I struggle with communicating what I offer and connecting it to the challenges and the problems. Usually they show up as problems that my clients or my client families have. And so I think that's the area of, for me, in my development as a communicator, is how to, and I think having that checklist would be quite helpful. It's like I can walk through and go, well, you know, tell me about, because sometimes I find out stuff about clients in the middle of what I'm doing. Yeah. And if I had walked through that journey with client families beforehand, then I could know that these are things we're going to address along the way. And it's not just about the dyslexia, it's often the behavioural issues or the energy management, you know, all that. So I think that's really valuable. And then doing that work, I think, helps me try and articulate stuff in my publicity, which I struggle with. Paul knows this well. It's like, I know what I do, but how do I find the words at 9 a.m. writing a post to say, to encapsulate that in language that makes sense to other people? Yeah. So I think this is really valuable for me. It's for me, I think the challenge is it's a communication challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also doing the other bits of my business. I always said that I didn't become a facilitator to run a business, but unfortunately I have to run a business to be a facilitator. So this year is about falling in love with the business side of being a facilitator, so I can expand what I do more of what I love. Yeah, but I'm hearing in your example with the wedding photography, you actually have fallen, or you fell in love with the particles of running that business, not just the taking the photos and producing beautiful albums, but every aspect of it you clearly enjoyed or found a way to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, and I think that, you know, for me, I'm a real, like, I like to help people, as I think everyone on this certainly falls into that category as well. And, you know, helping people, you need the thing that you do, that problem that you solve, that people come to you for. But I think that the more you can be, become the expert, but in a very soft way, you know, in a very encouraging way. You know, I had one wedding where, you know, at every wedding there was somebody with a big camera who always would tell me, like, what an easy job I had, what a fun job I had. You know, they don't see all the other parts of it. And I would just be, oh yeah, I love listening to the same music every Saturday night and Friday night. It's YMCA, let's go, you know. But I was just always like, yeah, absolutely, I've got an amazing job. And then this one bride hired me. And she said, now I know that your contract reads that you're you're the main photographer and nobody else is supposed to be taking pictures like at certain times. She's like, but we have a really dear friend who's in school to become a photographer. And we'd love to have him do it, but we just don't know if he's there yet. Like, we just don't know what we'll get if we hire him, but we don't really want to tell him that either. So, can we hire you to do our photography, but also be his mentor for the day? And I'm like, sure, no problem. I've got no problem with that. Like, thank you for asking. I've got no problem. So this fellow followed me around like a puppy all day. And I would, the basic agreement was I would set up the shots, I would do the shots, like he wasn't in the middle of my shots, but then I would step aside and let him take photos. And I really was not worried about it at all. Like, I was just going to do my own thing. So the wedding happens. They got married in an island, ocean. It was just, oh my God, beautiful. And I sent them the pictures. And a couple weeks later, she calls me up and she's like, I have the strangest question for you. And I'm like, yeah, what's that? She's like, did you have lots of ugly pictures of me that you threw away? And I was like, well, I had duplicate photos, like I slimmed them down, but no, why do you ask? She's like, I am so grateful I hired you. Like, I would set up the shots. Like, I had these amazing photos of like the wedding party on this long pier that out over the ocean, right? She's like, I look so ugly in every single one of his pictures. And she's like, I can't figure out why, because like it's the same picture, but I was beautiful in your picture and I was ugly in his. And she's like, I am so glad that I hired you. And what I didn't say to her was, but I do believe this to be true. I do believe this to be true. I shot about 250 weddings over 9 years in this business with myself, and my daughters eventually joined me in it. And I never had an ugly bride. They were all so beautiful. And I believe that the photos that I took showed my love for them, whoever I was taking. Like, I looked through my camera lens with love, and I saw their beauty. And that sounds corny. And I've talked to other people who like didn't even know how to smile to the guests. So, I can't even imagine having that conversation with them. But I mean, my first year, I had a couple. She was a midget and he was about 6'2". And I thought, oh my God, how? And, my brother and his 6-year-old daughter posed for me so I could practice posing. But they were so in love. They were so in love, right? I had another couple where they were probably each over 450 pounds. I mean, they were humongous people. They were so in scale with one another, and their wedding pictures were so beautiful. Like, she beamed the day of her wedding. I don't think I could have taken a bad photo of her because I looked at her with love. And I think that when you have that for your clients, it's just precious. It's just precious. So anyway, I do not know where we're at on time, Callie. I don't know if I'm over or under, but that
We're a little bit over, but it's all good.
okay.
I think, Rachel, what you just expressed for a lot of educators, it doesn't matter whether they're teachers or health and wellness people or anybody who is educating in any shape or form, many of us are really good at what we do and really bad at business. Or we think we're really bad at business. It's usually a perception. I didn't think that I would ever be able to run a business for myself, let alone help other people run their businesses. But it has occurred to me that this is a problem that I can help solve because of my wisdom that I've gained through just jumping in and opening up a business and getting on with it, so to speak. So I think that a lot of people, a lot of educators, a lot of people who have a skill or a passion just feel like they can't start a business because they don't know anything about business. But I guess that's what this is all about, you know, this networking and stuff. And I thank you so much, Maya, because, you know, I've written some notes here of the things that really dropped for me in that session. The foundation checklist was the first thing that came to me. I thought, oh, what a great idea. You know, you're not then fishing around in the dark for for what you do and how you can help that client, because if you can tell them specifically, hey, here's how I can help you, and they can look at that and go, oh, okay, I need help with this, this, and this, then you can easily customize your service to them. And the other thing that dropped for me was our unique wisdom, how everybody has that unique wisdom that nobody else has, and can share with people who need that wisdom at any time. So yeah, and everybody has it. Everybody has it. Even the most foolish people I've met, they've always given me something that I've gone, oh, actually, you're not as foolish as I thought you were.
Yeah.
And also customizing services. What dropped for me was like, I struggle with closing clients or getting them to come onto my business because I guess you know, it's that whole mentality of, oh, I don't want to waste their money. But I realized that if I said, let's talk about you, where can I help you? It would be a much easier conversation to have, rather than, oh, this is how I can help you. If you started off with, where can I help you? That just puts them in the limelight too, and gives you the ability to respond rather than react to questions, you know, like you know, I often find that people always lead with the how many people come through your website and that sort of thing, but the ARC education is much more than that, and they don't realize that, and that's probably because I don't ask them how I can help them.
Well,
So,
I just think if you start off with, where do you struggle? They're going to tell you. I mean, I think that should be the first question every business person should ask a potential client. Where do you struggle? What do you struggle with? Because they'll tell you what, if you start off with that, they'll tell you what they want. They'll tell
Mhm.
you what they need, and then you can go, well, here's how this can help you.
Yeah. Yes.
And they're giving you gold because whatever they say is whatever you need to advertise if you can help them solve that problem.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because if you know, if they say, you know, like with my business, with the small business path, right? If they're like, look, I'm struggling because I'm spending way too many hours doing the business and I'm not getting the clients, and they're you know, I'm putting out offers and no one wants to pay my prices because they don't see the value in it,
Mhm.
right? That's what you then put out to say, if you go to shecreatespeace.com, or actually both right now, both of my websites go to the same place, right? That whole page, which I paid for somebody to help me put that together because I didn't know how to do it to start with. But it's all about, one of the first questions it asks is this all there is to life? Right?
Mhm.
Anybody who's struggling with grief or loss is going to be like, oh my God, she gets me.
Mhm.
Right? How do I know that? Because I've talked to people. So
Maya, what's that website again?
shecreatespeace.com. I'm having somebody help me work on the websites and get them all in alignment. But right now it's that, but it looks like it's branded for the small business path because not everything's all in place yet. But like that just walks them down through the emotional roller coaster that someone who's really grieving would feel.
Mhm.
Right? And it creates a connection because if they see themselves in the words and the questions and how and the feelings, then they're going to be like, oh, she gets me, she can help.
Mm.
Oh, right? Because it's
Mhm.
that emotional connection, it's the meaningful connection, right? It's a meaningful connection. And the more you can do that, the more success you will have in your clients recognizing you can help them.
Yeah. And it has to be authentic too, doesn't it, Maya?
Oh,
You know, if you
absolutely.
don't feel it, don't say it.
Absolutely. And again, right, it's and that authenticity is going to come through. I mean, how many websites have you looked at and gone, oh, this is just a freaking sales pitch, I don't want anything to do with this,
Mhm.
you know? But if the feelings are right and the words are right and the offerings are right, that's when, and Callie, you and I've had this conversation about the arc.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
yes, it's, I think it has a lot to do too with um listening to others, but actually in the end going with your heart. If your heart if your heart isn't in it, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just want to say welcome, Anna. It's nice